There have been many who have compared serial ending with addiction, because we know that serial killers tend to develop a modus operandi, habits, sometimes a signature, a ritual, like think BTK, bind, torture, kill. That was his ritual. They develop obsessive fantasies. They obsess over stalking, like hunting their prey, and then the way that they either violate them or kill them. For some serial killers, it is all about the ending. For others, it's about what they do before the ending and then just getting rid of that person so there's no witness to their crimes. Regardless, either way, from what I've gathered from, criminal profilers, psychologists, is that generally serial ending, if you had to name it as an addiction, which a lot of them agree that it is an addiction to control, power and control over their victim. And a lot of serial endings, there's also a sex element. There's also this, some kind of gratification, sexually, and which kind of makes sense. It makes sense. In most cases, that is absolutely what it is. And in, the most famous serial killers we all hear about, that absolutely was a part of their MO. Now, when we look at the Bryan Kohberger case, from the beginning, I asked these questions. Did he have any incidents as a child of being a peeping Tom? Growing up.
Huge sign.
It is a huge sign.
Massive.
And it can start out as something innocent as a child, like with Danny Rolling wanting to see a wholesome family because he didn't have one. And then as they hit puberty, it begins to develop into something else. And, honing in on one person, whoever that person is, that fits their victimology type that they want to harm in some way or control in some way.
Yeah.
Now, with addiction, there is... So in the United States, 1 of 6 people is dealing with some type of addiction issue. 1% of all killings in the United States are serial killers.
Wow, I'm actually surprised it's only 1%.
It is only 1%.
Wow, okay.
Of murders in the United States are from serial killers, which is interesting. And I started wanting to, okay, so I was watching for a J is for Justice video about, it was titled, a girlfriend of Bryan Kohberger or something like that, and that struck my interest because we haven't heard of a girlfriend of Bryan Kohberger.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Sounds
what?
Sounds interesting.
And I like J's for Justice. I think she makes really good content.
She was our spotlight.
She was our spotlight last week. And, I think she does great work.
Yeah.
In this video, she plays kind of a background talking about the Pocono Mountains, saying that, addiction issues are really bad in that area, as well as then going into Kohberger, growing up a little bit. He was overweight. He was bullied, which I don't think she talked about that, but that's what we know of. He lost it in high school, so he became very conscious about what he ate. He started boxing after school every day, started working out, and he lost a ton. Literally, it was like 300 pounds and down to 150 in his junior to senior years when he really lost that weight. And then developed an eating disorder that required him to be hospitalized. Then developed an addiction to intravenous heroin. Now, I don't know how that escalated, because normally you don't go from clean and sober kid to
we have
IV
confirmation
use
that he was IV?
From people who knew him, yes. That he would claim that he was...
Because I've never seen that.
Yeah, there's a friend that was close to him that said he would promise, oh, I'm clean now, I'm clean, and then literally have track marks that are still bleeding.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That is so strange because all the people I knew that were addicts, IV comes way down the road.
Yeah, so that was my question too. And one thing Jay is for Justice posed, which I think is a good, a good thinking is, okay, hold on, we'll get into it. So he had a tummy tuck surgery.
Okay.
After losing all that weight. Because think, 300 pounds to 150, that's a lot of weight to lose.
Yeah.
In a pretty short amount of time, junior to senior year. So, tummy tuck, did he get prescribed opiates? Did it escalate from the medication from that surgery to IV use? And this is an area when he was those years, I know, and from my own experience, narcotics were getting prescribed a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they were getting handed out. They were getting handed out like crazy. He's about 29, so yeah, it pretty much, it lines up. I think it wasn't as... I think they had tightened down the hatches a little bit at that point, his junior to senior year. If I'm, thinking right, it wasn't... I don't know. I guess it wasn't... It was still pretty loose, though. It was still pretty loose. It's tightened down a lot now. Honestly, people have a hard time getting pain medication now. Who need it?
Yeah.
But anyway...
I'm just blown away. I don't think people understand, how big of a deal that is going straight to IV use. That is so uncommon. Extremely uncommon.
We do not know that it was IV use right away. That's what I'm saying. We don't know the escalation. We don't know the starting point.
Right. It just seems like he was only using for 1 or 2 years. And in my mind, out of everybody I've ever known that's been a user, they never...
Yeah, but we don't know what he experimented with before that. We don't know much. We don't know much.
True.
So, about, because I know a lot of kids in their teenage years, start drinking, pretty early on, 14, 13, some even 7.
Drinking the IV.
Drinking, then experimenting, slowly working their way up. And then, getting addicted to opiates from medication, from pills, and then, because that addictive thinking's already there. You know what I mean?
An addict
is... We know Kohberger was troubled from the time he was pretty small, the whole visual snow comments and everything.
I don't know if I would classify that as being troubled.
I mean, he had some issues. He had some mental health issues. I wouldn't say troubled, but he was dealing with mental health issues for 100% sure. All of that in his little visual snow thing was a child who was feeling lost, confused, depressed. He had derealization going on.
Right, but that wasn't as a child. That's when he was in 15 and 16, I thought. At the same time he was using.
That's not junior and senior year.
I mean, it was for me.
I mean, usually as a senior, people are 18.
Yeah, not me. I just turned 17 when I graduated.
Okay, well, you clearly skipped a grade. Do we have confirmation Kohberger skipped a grade?
I didn't skip a grade. I'm just trying to make...
Or started school early.
I'm trying to make connections here because So I love the psychology of the out of normal, whether it's serial enders, no matter what it is, it's outside of what your average person's psyche is. And I've tried looking into Kohberger's, and the only thing I found is that block between 14 and 18, or 14 and 17, is all the posts that were done online, his weird rapping time while he was using, and it's just all in that bulk time right there. I haven't been able to find anything from him being a child.
Okay. At 14, you're a child in my mind.
Okay.
Okay. So I wasn't
would just
chalking.
clarify.
Okay, as a teen.
Because that builds a profile that he's always been this troubled kid.
Yeah, but he also
like
said he always knew something was wrong with him from the time he was a child in that.
Everyone says that.
Only people who have mental health issues, people who are like don't deal with this kind of like mental health issues like depression, I can't say a word right now, disassociating, they do not feel like there was something wrong with them from the time they were a small child.
Maybe. I think everyone in the world feels like there's something wrong with them. That's the human condition.
I don't think so.
Comment. Are you somebody that when you were growing up, going through those uncomfortable years, did you feel like something was wrong with you? I did.
Yeah, but it's that I don't feel like that's good enough. I think it needs to be, do you feel like that there was something off about you? Not do you.
When you're younger.
Okay, as a teenager, did you ever feel like there's been something wrong with you since like birth, since you were a small child? That there's something off about you, to be more specific. Mm-hmm. 'Cause I don't feel that way. I don't feel like there's something wrong with me from the time of birth or as a small child. But anyway, so yes, he had the tummy tuck.
But
okay, I don't think I ever felt that way though. That there was something wrong with me from the time I was a small child. But anyway, he had the tummy tuck, and then his friend, Thomas Arndt, said that, and he was like a pretty close friend of his, says there was a behavior shift, after he lost the weight, and it was pretty significant, and he became like more aggressive. He went from like this passive, bullied, overweight kid to being more aggressive, which I don't know, maybe boxing. Like he was boxing. He became more confident. I'm curious what they mean by that. Because if he's innocent, could it be as innocent as this is also another passive person who was friends with Kohberger because they related? Because they're both kind of more passive people? And then Kohberger got confidence, started boxing, and, just was like ready to take on the day kind of thing, and just feeling better about everything, and he thought he's like, they didn't like it.
I've always thought that people who are using that as an example are proving right there that he's probably not the person that could do this crime, because that fact shows that there was doubt previously, when normally in a killer's mind there's never doubt, ever. That doesn't happen. Okay. It doesn't show in that way. You're never, the only time you're ever like a victim or anything like that, it's by choice to get something you want.
I mean, I personally didn't feel like his writings about the visual snow made sense with a serial ender. I feel like that is...
I think I said that on there, but they don't stand out to me at all. It is a normal, confused kid that's going through life, and life is hard when you're going through puberty. Everybody feels uncomfortable. Nobody is happy with themselves. Guys have, a voice that's so embarrassing, and they have all these weird emotions and drives that have gone times 10. Then you have a woman that her body is changing, and in that process, it's embarrassing and uncomfortable. And that's why I'm saying, like, I think everybody feels like something's wrong. It's a very known fact that kids and people in general go through that time and are so uncertain and uncomfortable and lack of confidence and You know what I mean? The only people that are confident are sociopaths. The only people that feel like there's not something wrong with them, I think, are sociopaths.
Makes sense. So he developed a deceiving. So what I'm seeing here, okay, is somebody who gets obsessed with something. Like he dieted, started boxing, lost weight, got an eating disorder, took it too far. Mental health issue, okay? Then develops an addiction, more obsession. Like addiction and obsession could go hand in hand. I've even heard people describe addiction as an OCD disorder almost, like in the way that your brain works. So I see like obsession issues there. Like, you know what I mean? Also, we know that he would be up cleaning super late at night. He was like an insomniac and, wearing gloves and all of that. That's why the gloves don't stand out to me. Now, I would need to know how often he wore gloves before the killings. But as somebody that is obsessive, up vacuuming, going for 5-mile runs at night, like, it just seems like that's his personality. He's obsessive. OCD. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
just don't have enough background to commit to any of that yet.
No, I don't think you can. I mean, we know these are facts about him losing weight, developing an eating disorder, having an addiction. His neighbors saying that he was up at late hours of the night, cleaning and stuff. There's apparently imagery of him in Albertsons that day, of the 13th, wearing gloves, so...
Where'd we get the eating disorder info from? I've never heard that.
There's several interviews with friends that were close to him.
Oh,
like several.
So nothing confirming it?
I mean, we can't see medical records.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just know... I don't put value in statements. Anyone's.
Yeah, but they showed their names and faces. It's not anonymous.
No, I understand that. My personal opinion is trust but verify, meaning I don't. Words are cheap.
Well, yeah, so, I mean, it depends on if you want to believe the friends' statements or not.
Yeah.
For sure, I understand that.
Yeah, and I'm not... Me doubting that doesn't mean that it can't be true. It just means that I need evidence.
Yeah.
I need something saying this is what it is, or somebody that is required by law to be good faith, like a lawyer. Like if one of the lawyers said it, okay, I believe that it's fact then. But
yeah. Okay, so now in his drug-addicted years, we have an image here of him and this girl, Ashley Fugel, who ended up overdosing and dying in May of 2018. Apparently, they were pretty good friends. He's got his arms around her. Now, when she OD'd, the police came out and said they wanted to speak to a Richard T. Shinsky, and he was also wanted in that county at the time, and he was apparently there that morning, and they wanted to talk to him for questioning, but there's no more on that. Like, we have no idea what came of that. And that was in Jay is for Justice's video, which I suggest you go watch. It's interesting. It was the beginning of it is a good little breakdown and everything. But, so no follow-up in the media. So we find out that she's gay, she's a lesbian, and, there was the question posed, could he have wanted her? And that was like a disappointment for him. And I feel like that's kind of a far reach to start going down that route. I don't think his arm being around her means that he's, like, into her, especially when they're all, like, because you can tell how messed up they all are in the picture, and they're partying. So I don't feel like it's weird. It's clearly not his girlfriend.
Even if he was, but it's just a fabrication of multiple things there to create an end goal of some kind of idea. Because one, you don't know if he was into her. Two, you don't know if him being into her and her being a lesbian actually created negative feelings. Three, you don't know if him being into her and her being a lesbian and created negative feelings created some kind of anger. Like, it's just, these are layered assumptions.
Yeah, and I don't want to like come at Jays for Justice sideways or anything. I think her content's great. I think she did a great job like showing, you know, putting this in a linear fashion, showing it. I just feel like that's a heck of a jump to make. Like, she's
another person that is really good about like think tanking.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't be offended by us questioning that. I feel like she's super open minded, and I hope people question our think tank ideas too, you know. I don't mean nothing bad by it. We're just digging, you know.
Yeah, but I do think it's really interesting going back to, you know, this time in his life and looking at it. Now, I do not think being an addict, okay, addiction I think could be a red flag in a serial ender, because in this case study, I found a case study on this. It's from PubMed.NCBI.
But what serial enders were addicts?
A lot. So it is
just not the main ones.
Yes, very much so. Main ones. A lot of them were alcoholics. Ted Bundy was an alcoholic. He had addiction issues. So this is Patterns of Substance Abuse and Intoxication Among Murderers by R.M. Yarvis. Here's the abstract. A series of 100 murderers were examined to discern patterns of substance abuse and intoxication in relation to homicidal events. More than half of the study subjects were found to be actively abusing drugs at the time of their crime, and almost half were intoxicated. Half.
Yeah, half intoxicated.
Now, that's 100 that they chose for this. So I hope they had some kind of system in doing that to make it as unbiased as possible, because we know that you can definitely bias a study and statistics a lot by your method of choosing your pool.
Well, yeah, and also even that idea, though, that you said that half of them were intoxicated while doing that, that isn't a sign of addiction, okay? When all adults, okay, when you're an adult, what sounds like fun?
It says they were actively abusing.
Going out to a bar, having a drink, and then, you know, having adult time with somebody that you enjoy being around and things like that. Well, that's the difference between a sociopath. A sociopath doesn't have fun doing that. They have another level of extreme that they're trying to reach, and their level of fun is power and control and harming somebody and totally taking control of some other human being. So being intoxicated while doing that, to me, isn't a red flag.
I think that addiction absolutely can be a red flag, but as an addict, it is such a tiny, all addicts out there, okay, and there's a ton. 1 in 6 people have addiction issues. You know how tiny the percentage of serial enders already is? And the percentage of an addict becoming one, it's not just because they're an addict that they will become one. Addiction is not a reason that they will become a serial ender.
Yeah, my question is...
It's just a red flag to addictive behavior when you're looking at somebody. Because, yes, a lot of serial enders, the more I looked into it, had addiction issues.
But are you sure it's not 1 in 6?
It could be.
Enders,
it could be.
Which means that's not a red flag, though.
What?
If 1 in 6 serial enders are addicts, and 1 in 6 people in society are addicts, that means that that's not a red flag.
I can't find that stat. All I know is that a lot of the serial enders I looked into, the big ones too, had some form of addiction, abusing substances issue. Okay. A lot.
Yeah.
So it just... I
just
don't know.
Question everything is all, and that's how I figure things out.
Yeah, no, I think it would be really interesting to look at, maybe even do our own thing, I don't know, but to look at that, I'll try digging more, and maybe like on a live stream or something we can talk about this more, trying to figure that stat out, seeing if there's anywhere, because I did dig, but I couldn't find anything on like, what's the percentage of serial enders that had addiction issues?
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything, but, you know, maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I'm just asking these questions because I'm the type of person that needs to play the other side of the coin to understand if I have an argument here in general. And, J is for Justice, I believe, believes that Kohberger is guilty, okay?
Yeah.
So and that doesn't change how I feel about anybody, whether you think he's guilty or not. It's all just opinion based on what we're looking at here. But when I am looking at content, and that person believes that Kohberger is guilty, then I am intentionally looking for biased opinions towards his guilt. When I'm watching a content creator that believes he's innocent, I am consciously looking for biased opinion around his innocence.
Absolutely. So. And there is one part of that video, because, I think we got into it pretty good. So I'm going to, end there on what I feel about it. I don't think him being an addict means that much, but it is a little red flag in my head where there's already addictive behavior there. And if the eating disorder stuff is in fact true, that's multiple. And also the life as an addict, maybe he does have some more experience in crime than we realized. You know what I mean? And just never got caught. Mm-hmm. So, which is a big thing. He has no criminal history at all. Maybe he's just a genius at crime.
It's very rare.
That is rare, especially when you're an addict.
Yeah.
Addicts
I had trouble when I was
throw it all
younger.
away a lot of times if they're a junkie. But I want to make the clear distinction here that there are many functioning addicts. There are multiple types of addicts. There are some who cannot control themselves to the point and are so obsessed with the high and the drug that everything else falls to the wayside. But then there are addicts, I have quite a few in my family who have always worked super hard, maintained a life, just maybe their emotional life is stunted. And to everyone else, it looks like they're uber successful and got it together. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's important.
Wall Street runs on addiction and cokeheads. Yeah. I'm not even joking.
I know you're not joking.
That's what it is.
Wolf on Wall Street, the movie.
Yeah. Because I always... It bothers me when people try and make it look like because they're addicts, that's more of a reason that they are some kind of person like a serial person or a mass ending person, when that's not the case. Actually, they just happen to be an addict because there are so many addicts in society. And if you actually look at the overall statistic, the social stats, that 1 in 6 people is an addict, and then pull that statistic and bring it back down to a more fitting pool of people, then a lot of times it's just 1 in 6, meaning it doesn't matter if they're an addict. They aren't changing the stat. What I would expect to see if it is a red flag, addiction and a serial ender, then I would expect it an increase. Like half of all serial enders are addicts. Very clear, not maybes, very clear drug addicts, okay? And if I don't see that, then it's not a red flag to me.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I just don't think we're going to find that stat. Because I've tried and I've tried.
And you have to be careful because the social perception on addiction is so negative and so bad, people want to attach that label to criminals.
Yeah, this is the only study I could find that cited how many of the people in their pool, of the people they chose, the murders they chose, it was literally half in this study. But I don't know who those people were. Okay. And that is important to me. Yeah. I do want to know. I want to know if they're a Gracie or a Bundy or, a Huerman. Yeah. And Huerman was a gambler. That's an addiction. Because let's be real here. Addictions can take many forms. You can have a shopping addiction.
But was
you can have a working out addiction.
Though?
You can be a workaholic. That's an addiction. I mean... Because
there's a difference between a heavy user or an actual addict.
Right. No, you're right. You're right. And I think, from what I saw, it sounded like John Ray was saying that's why they have, no money. Is because they're gambling addicts. That's why, because he made a ton of money, but they have like none. It's because him and his wife gamble, like big time.
Well, don't they have multiple properties and all kinds of stuff?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but there are other properties in Vegas, so.
No, I get it, but if you're an owner of a property, you're not gambling away everything you have.
Yeah, but how nice is that property?
I don't think it matters. It's proof that you're holding something without gambling it away.
That's true.
It doesn't matter if that property's worth $10,000 or $100,000.
Maybe
you're still not gambling it away.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. But anyway, so the last thing I wanted to talk about, because we were just talking about functioning addicts and non-functioning addicts. Jays for Justice asked, and like I said again, I don't want to come at her sideways, but she basically said it was gross to even speculate on the victims having any kind of drug issues. Recreational drug use does not mean addiction. I don't think anybody ever said they were addicts. Even if they were addicts,
who cares?
Agreed. It doesn't matter to me at all. The only reason it would matter is the type of people they're hanging around. But we do know that there were drugs in close proximity to them. It's a college. Drugs are in close proximity. If you were at college, a party college, it's a party house. I mean, they're in close proximity. So them using drugs, it doesn't matter except for who was supplying them and if there were any issues with that person. Because like we like to explore every avenue and look at if there's any evidence there. For that to hold any weight.
Think tank means
even if they were addicts, okay, or weren't and just used recreational drugs, they could 100% still be very successful in school.
Yeah.
And I know that was a big one, is like, how could you say that? Look at what they were doing with their lives. Like, they were doing great in school. They were, Xana and Jazzy's mom had an addiction, and that had to be so traumatic for them. Why would they turn to drugs? Dude, I know that they got pulled away from that, but I don't know how to say this. I'm sure it was very traumatic for them, but there are people who break the cycle and there are people who don't.
Well, the right way to say it is, statistically, when you have a parent that is an addict, you are at more than double risk of becoming an addict yourself. So,
breaking the cycle is the rarity.
It's not personal. It's literally statistics. You're more likely to become an addict by at least double the rate when your parent is one. And look, here's the thing. This is why it's never an attack. That's just her opinion. And maybe she doesn't have a lot of experience with addiction, which if she doesn't, dude, that's great. Man, I'm jealous, because most families in America deal with addiction. Most families have 6 people or more, and one of them, on average, is an addict or deals with addiction problems in some way, shape, or form. And with the survivors or the victims, it doesn't matter if they're addicts. It doesn't matter if they're not. Like, that is not important, and that feeds the fire and feeds the fuel to society's negative outlook on addicts and use of substances in general. You got to remember, when the U.S. outlawed alcohol is drugs. Anyone that says that it's not, it's just a justification. Alcohol is drugs. And why it's drugs is because when you look up what the worst substances are for a human body, alcohol is tied with benzodiazepines. It is worse for your body than heroin is. It is worse for your body than cocaine is. It is worse than your body than meth is. We outlawed it, and our own police, politicians, and general public was continuing to pursue and offer alcohol. Like, we are a society built around substance use and or abuse. We've just chosen as a society to classify, the non-taxable forms as illegal drugs, and that is what it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with everything you just said there. And again, I don't think it matters whether they're using drugs or not. They still deserve justice. They still deserve people who care about their case and their lives and their families. And whether they're addicts or not, it doesn't matter. They could still be successful in school. As I said before, I have seen many a functioning addict do a ton. They may fail in other ways in their lives. Some of the most
successful people I've ever met were functioning addicts, and some of the most unsuccessful I've ever met were non-functioning addicts. Yeah,
absolutely. So I think you have to look for other markers there than just were they succeeding in school or not. I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. But, I respect her opinion. She was trying to bring a lot of awareness to addiction in that stream and video, which I think is great. There always needs to be more attention brought to addiction because it is something that is so taboo still in a lot of ways. A lot of people don't believe that it's a mental health illness still. They think it's just a choice. They think you just want to have fun because you think drugs are fun, which drugs are fun, by the way. They just can ruin your life. So you got to weigh the pros and cons there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there's a reason why so many people use, and I'm not even talking about addicts. I mean, in general, there are a lot of non-addicts out there that they just use respectfully. They go see witch doctors. They get cabins in the woods. They only do it twice a year or on their birthday or like all these things. If they weren't fun, that wouldn't be there. Now, the big difference is do you have leftover trauma in your life that you're not able to properly cope with? Because if you're one of those people that do and you choose to use, then you're setting yourself up with the stats against you in that situation. And that's never a good situation because any of those substances, including alcohol, including tobacco, including working out, including anything that gets your adrenaline going and your what's it called, the dopamine in your head flowing, whatever, then you're at risk. You are at risk if you have that trauma and you're not where you need to be coping mechanism-wise with that trauma. So just be careful and Yeah,
so, addiction is just something that's, like, close to my heart. I want everybody to educate themselves on it so badly, and not just, I don't know, there's a lot of biased sources for information. I always suggest getting your education from a rehabilitated addict. Mm-hmm. That is the best source for information about addiction, is like a rehabilitated addict who's now a counselor or, wants to talk about this subject, because it's when you go through counseling or group therapy for this disease, you might as well earn a degree because they teach you so much about mental health, about, how your brain processes things, why you are this way. So I don't know, but like I said, not trying to call anybody out. I just think it's important to mention what we mentioned here. And yeah, I want to know what you guys think about this topic. Do you think that Bryan Kohberger being an addict means anything is it pertinent to the case? Like, does it matter? Is it nothing? Or is it something?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll leave you with that question.
All right.